Welcome to the Cyber Business Podcast, where we feature top founders and entrepreneurs and share their inspiring stories. Now, let's get started with the show.
Matthew Connor here, host of the Cyber Business Podcast, where we feature successful business leaders, top law firms, green energy companies, and more. Today, we are joined by the talented and charismatic founder and CEO of the Goldie Agency, Julian Goldie. Julian, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Hello.
Oh, thanks for being on. Before we get too far in, a quick word from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by CyberLynx.com. That's CyberLynx.com. CyberLynx is a complete technology solution provider that ensures your business not only has the most reliable and professional IT service, but also has the right cybersecurity solution to ensure your business stays productive and safe. And now back to our show. All right, Julian, man, I am so glad you're on the show today. We are huge fans of the Goldie Agency here at CyberLynx. So for those that aren't familiar, can you tell the folks what the Goldie Agency does and what they're all about?
Sure. So we are a SEO agency that helps websites get more traffic, customers, and leads from Google. And we're all about focusing on what moves the needle with SEO in an efficient way to actually deliver our clients results.
Well, I can attest to that. And in the spirit of full disclosure, we have been using the Goldie Agency for a couple months now. The results have been, greatly exceeded our expectations. And I think for a lot of people, they're not exactly clear on what SEO is. I mean, everybody, search engine optimization. They get the general idea, but I think for most small business owners, even larger business owners, there is an educational disconnect in terms of what SEO is, what to expect, how to implement it. Has that been your experience as well?
100%. One of the biggest problems is that so many people lack clarity when it comes to an action plan. So they understand SEO, they understand that it's about ranking higher on Google to get more traffic, but there's so many different ranking factors and so much information out there that it's totally overwhelming. And it's really difficult, I think, for someone outside of that space who's new to it but knows they need it to really figure out what's going to move the needle, what can they do, what's the roadmap in terms of going from where they are and where they need to be, and what are the inputs that get the outputs, because there's like 200 ranking factors in Google's algorithm, but actually only a few matter, and you really have to separate the vital few from the trivial many.
I think that's well said. I mean, I think, and for us, we're an IT and cybersecurity company. We know all about tech. Building websites, not a problem. That's easy stuff, kind of, child's play. And so the interesting part is, SEO is so specialized and it requires so much to understand it. And really, like you said, with all those factors, figuring out which one, you can spend a lifetime on the factors that don't matter and make no progress. And you're like, we're killing ourselves on SEO. We're spending all this time. Everything's optimized. I don't get it. Why aren't we making any headway? And I think the thing that I love about the way you go about it is it's all results based. Instead of it being like, hey, we're just going to, whatever. You're like, no, we're going to get you I think you focus on backlinks, a lot. That's kind of like, one of your key things. I know that's what's been really beneficial for us. Can you kind of explain that to people? Because I don't want to go too far into it when maybe the listeners don't quite understand, well, what the hell's a backlink? So what's a backlink and why does it matter?
Okay, so a backlink sounds fancy, but it's not. All it is the clickable text from one website to another. So when you're scrolling through a blog, say, and you click on a link that takes you, say, from Wikipedia to someone else's website, that's a backlink. And Google's algorithm is kind of like a voting system. So the more backlinks you get, aka votes, from relevant authority websites, the higher you're going to rank in theory. Now, it's not always the case. There's some nuances to it, but that's essentially it. And in a case study of over 1 billion websites by Ahrefs.com, they found that 91% of content gets zero traffic from Google. So you can imagine these websites hire a big team, spend months planning this out, tirelessly write the content for their site and still don't get any Google love because they don't understand how to build backlinks. And here's the thing with links, like anyone can adjust their website, anyone can create content, anyone can optimize their content. That's very easy. But it's really hard to convince another website to link to you, especially a high quality one. So it's really the only credible factor that Google can use to see, this site's got loads of backlinks from other sites. Everyone says their content is good, and therefore we're going to rank it higher.
I mean, it makes sense. If, for instance, CNN and ABC are talking about your company all the time, the odds are you're not some fly-by-night, your BS company. You're a legitimate, important company. And so it only makes sense. How does Google sift through all of that and say, hey, who's actually legitimate? What content are people actually going to want to be interested in? Well, it's the content that other legitimate sites are referencing, right? So makes 100%. Perfect sense.
Yeah, that's it. Because on a very high level, it's all about authority. The more authority a site has, the more likely Google is to rank it higher up on the rankings. So, for example, a site you might see all the time on the first page of Google is Wikipedia. And that's simply because it's a very authoritative site, has a lot of trust, a lot of expertise, and therefore Google's always going to push a site like that up the rankings.
That actually brings up a really interesting point. Should people create their own, Wikipedia page and link to their site? Is that like hey, why don't you do that? It costs you nothing. It makes sense. Or is that like, no, it doesn't really work that way? Or
so there's something called Parasite SEO, where essentially you're leveraging another website's authority to rank your own content higher. So, you might see affiliate marketers post an article on Forbes.com or another website, they'll promote their company directly on Wikipedia because it's much easier to get on the first page of Google if you've got a piece of content on Wikipedia versus a website no one's ever heard of. So it's very common, but at the same time, Wikipedia's editorial team are very careful who they link out to. And sometimes you might publish or just add a cheeky backlink on Wikipedia, but it gets taken down the week later or 24 hours later because it doesn't fit and they can see what you're doing.
Right. Good point. And then you can get, right, when you start getting into the dark side of SEO, doing these tricks, I guess back in the day, people used to do a bunch of backlinks where, it was invisible on the page. Yeah. And Google got real mad about that once they figured out, right? And then they punish you when they find out you're doing bad things like that. Is that still the case?
Yeah, there's always these short-term tactics that you can use to try and manipulate Google's algorithm and force your rankings up. And they might work. With anything in business, there's always black hat shortcuts. The problem is these are shortcuts and they don't last long-term. So some examples might be spamming loads of blogs and writing a comment with a link directly back to your site. And then it worked for a bit and then Google stamps it out. Or another one was these content spinners where you could take someone else's content and get software to just rewrite it. And it's basically their content, but a few synonyms thrown in. And then that gets stamped out quickly. So these things work for a short period. But if you want to play the long-term game, and it's your business, right? Your website, you don't change that every day. And therefore, it's better to be white hat. That's why that's why we focus on white hat SEO.
I love it. Well, let me ask you. So you talked about, that kind of taking, somebody's content, having software rewrite it. Leads me to think of kind of ChatGPT, and I know it's not the same, but it has been, it's pretty great coming up with content. So when you're like, hey, write me a blog post about whatever, I know you've created a ton of videos on how to leverage ChatGPT for SEO, and that's one of the things I love about your YouTube channel's ridiculous. I mean, there's so much content out there. I mean, ridiculous in a great way, though. I mean, it's all right there, and and again, when I first saw you on, I was like, wow, and I started deep diving into all this content. I'm like, this is great. I just don't have the time for this. And then I was like, maybe I can get them to do So it was a no-brainer to hire you guys to do it because, I could spend 50 hours, 100 hours going through your stuff and then hundreds of hours trying to implement it. Or I could just have you guys do it. And it was so much faster and easier. Now we spend 30 minutes a month going over stuff, with your team. Yep, this is great. These are great, articles, great. You do all the backlinks. But all that aside, going back to the whole Chat GPT thing, what's your take on this? The Chat GPT is everywhere now. What's your take? How do you see this playing out in the SEO world and life in general?
Interesting one. So I think it's unbelievable how quickly and how much of a huge impact ChatGPT's had across the whole world, especially in SEO. Having said that, at my agency, we only sell human written content still, simply because what everyone's doing right now is basically taking the shortest path of resistance, which is writing a blog on ChatGPT, copying it, pasting it straight into your site. And like those short-term tactics, this works. Short-term, it will work for a few months or even a year. But long-term, when you think about it, Google's going to implement AI into their SERPs. So you have to add some sort of value outside of ChatGPT, some sort of human element or experience inside your content that differentiates you. Because if we all have access to the same technology, Google and us, then it's very easy for Google to just replicate that content on the first page. They don't need to send anyone to your site. So you have to think, right, how can I present the information in a way that provides more value than ChatGPT can, or more value than just a copy and paste article? And by all means, you can use AI to create content, but the focus has to be on quality, not just taking the path of least resistance and just copying and pasting and, hoping it ranks. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's funny because we did a few of those. I mean, I think ChatGPT, well, let me finish my first thought there because I get, there's a bunch that I want to talk about here. But we did the same thing. We did a few blog posts using ChatGPT, quick, fast, and easy. Boom, fine, it worked. But then as we switched over to you guys and had you start writing creating the content for us, it's night and day. I mean, you can tell it's like, somebody basically pencil whipped their homework versus somebody actually understood the assignment. They understood the material. They wrote out something, that makes perfect sense. Well, of course, the ChatGPT made sense, but you can just tell the quality is not the same. And, played around with all kinds of, AI prompts, get the right prompt and, really dig in there and have it rewrite things, just the right way. It's still not quite there. You can tell. I don't know what it is, how you can quite tell. There's some sort of human subconscious thing. You're like, oh yeah, that's decent content. It works, but you can tell it wasn't human written. And I don't quite know why, but it's slightly off. But the quality, as we switched to, having actual humans write it it's just night and day. I mean, it really is. I mean, so I'm right there with you.
100%.
I think that's the future. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think there's two things there. So with ChatGPT, it's gone from 0 to 80% of the way there really, really fast. But to get from, like, say, 80% to 90 or 95 might take a lot longer, because it's those final tweaks that add much more levels of complexity and are very hard to duplicate in terms of achieving the same quality as a human writer. On top of that, I used to write songs for music, and I'd play guitar, and even last year I'd play guitar live and write songs and perform my own songs every week. And one of the things I noticed about creativity in general, whether it's writing blogs, whether it's creating video content, whether you're doing something like writing poems or songs, it's the observations that really make the difference. And I think that's what's off with AI content, is that it's not that interesting because it doesn't observe things or present information in a way that's observational. It provides it in a very logical, fact-driven way. And when you look at, like, the best content creators, even with video, you've got people like Alex Hormozy, for example. It's the way they really present that information on a human level that makes all the difference.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Well, let me ask you. So you were not always running the the Goldie Agency, and we love these founder stories. So you did plenty in marketing beforehand, but if you could, can you share with us your story of how you started the agency? What got you there? So how did it come to be?
Yeah, 100%. So right now I'm based in Bangkok, Thailand. That's where I spend most of my year. And that all happened because me and a few friends of mine went out to Thailand and we had a great holiday, amazing holiday. But when we came back to England, we had the holiday blues big time. UK food, UK weather, fish and chips, our national dish, gets boring pretty quickly. And so we said to each other, right, well, we don't like where we are now. So within 12 months, let's make sure we're working online with the freedom to live and work anywhere and back out in Thailand. And all of us made it, which was really amazing. Best friends from Manchester, and we all made it out to Thailand. So that was great. But in that process, the way that I started working online was Fiverr.com. I don't know if you've ever come across it.
Mm-hmm.
So I started off, the way that I started off working online was I Googled how to make money online. And then that led me to Fiverr, and I started writing articles for one article for $5. And not very high paid, as you can imagine. I was working about 60 hours a week, making about $120. So I was about working for about $2 an hour on average, which is great because you learn that lesson quickly, and you're like, right, I'm burning myself out here. I'm not making enough money, and this isn't very scalable. So after that, I had a few friends out in Chiang Mai, Thailand, and there's a big SEO community there. Some of the world's best SEO experts there. And they taught me how to build backlinks. And from there, I started using it for my own sites I was writing for. They started ranking. I was like, oh, maybe I could sell this too. And just scaled up the agency from there. Yeah. My first client was from Mongolia, of all places, Mongolian real estate firm.
No kidding.
Yeah, seriously.
That's awesome. Okay. So that transition, because right now you've got, you create a lot of content. So, you really kind of embody that inbound marketing kind of process. You fully implement that. I mean, obviously that's how we found you. You create a lot of content, and that drives eyes back to you. How did you go from zero, right? Because how'd you go from Fiverr to getting that first client and building things up? What was your process?
So for me, what I said was, right, well, I'm going to try this for 30 days. I'm going to try selling link building for 30 days. And I already had an Upwork profile as a copywriter. I switched that totally to SEO and link building. And I said, right, every single day, I'm going to stop all the other projects that I'm doing and just totally focus on selling link building. And I started doing sales calls, trying to get on a call with every client I could. I mean, this is going back 5 years. Then I would send loads of proposals and outreach messages to all these people on Upwork as well, and follow up with them every single day. And that, having those interactions with other clients who were thinking about buying link building, but not necessarily thinking about buying from me, really helped me figure out the product market fit, which is, what do my clients need and what's going to help them get the best results possible. And from there, just kept iterating the offer 1% every single day. How can I improve this? How can I create something that clients love? And that's a process that I've even followed up today. Like every single day, I think about how can I make the service better, and how can I provide a better service, and that sort of thing. How can we improve retention? So just total focus, 30 days, burn all the bridges, forget about all your other projects, and just double down. See if it works. Yeah. And if it doesn't work, it's okay. You can move on to something else, but it did work. So
that's right. Okay. So let's go from there. Because, where you are now with, your huge YouTube, channel, you're obviously your SEO's, really good. That transition to get there. I mean, here you're going on Upwork and Fiverr to, kind of find those SEO clients, right? To sell backlinks on there. How did you transition from, because that's not really, I mean, that's one source. I don't know if is that still a source for you today?
100%. Yeah.
Nice. How's that compared to, say, the inbound? So this is really interesting. How's that, how does Upwork compare to, say, your inbound leads from from the web or from YouTube?
So on Upwork, you've got a lot of social proof, and people have already got their credit cards plugged into the system, so they're ready to buy on there, and they already have the search intent, which is looking for a link builder or looking for an SEO service, which makes converting those clients much easier, especially if you have a proven track record. Like for us, we have hundreds of 5-star reviews going back 5, 6, 7 years. So it makes it really easy to convert clients into, to convert prospects into clients. With inbound, it's a little bit more challenging because even if they've watched 10 or 15 of your videos, they don't necessarily know what they're looking for. They just know that you've got some expertise and they're like, right, how can this guy help me? On top of that, they're likely to be shopping around, so they won't be just talking to you. They're going to be talking to a bunch of other agencies and doing the research and comparing you on all these other things. So it's definitely a lot more challenging. I would say with Upwork, just because of the amount of social proof we've got and such a great profile, a lot of those clients don't even want a sales call. They just send you the offer after a few messages and they trust you enough because it's a no-brainer. There's, 100 reviews. With inbound, you might have a phone call and then you're chasing up every week for 2-3 months, and then eventually the client will buy when they're ready. Yeah.
Oh, see, I didn't expect that, but then again, I'm always different than everybody else. It's weird. It's like and then of course I think everybody must think like me because I think that's some sort of psychological disorder. Like, how else do you? I mean, I try to put myself in other people's shoes, but your perspective is you're kind of stuck in your own head with your own perspective. And so for me, it was like, oh, found this, and I think I kind of already told you the story. Went, saw some of your videos. That was a no-brainer. So then it was just a matter of how quickly can I sign up and start getting you guys to do the work for me. I'm not planning on shopping around because I think the other thing, at least from my perspective, was there's so many people out there offering so many services, right? And so when it comes to SEO, you've heard time and time and marketing, right? All these agencies, whether it's ads, marketing, SEO, there's so much out there, and honestly, you don't know who's legit, who will actually perform. They've all got great websites. It all sounds fantastic, but surely it's not all working, or everybody be you'd hear about it, right? So for me, it was really obvious when I saw your content. It was like, oh, boom, it's a no-brainer, right? And I think those agencies that don't do content where they have a killer website and it's like, oh, it's a great website, but they're not giving away kind of they're not just spilling the beans like, hey, look, here's how it's done. You can do it yourself, because your videos, I mean, you strike a really good balance of, hey, look, here's all the stuff. Here's the secret sauce. Do it.
Yeah.
It's brilliant because nobody wants to do that, right? And then it's a matter of, well, how do I even get the backlink? Yeah, okay, send out these emails. Okay, right. Like even the Haro, the help a reporter out thing. Like back in the day, I tried that and I was like, oh, that's tough on the tech side. It's tough to like even to have the answer to one of their questions. But then to be selected, then you spend the time typing it up and you send it and you wasted it. And you're like, man, I just wasted an hour and a half and I got nothing. You do that a few times. And for me, I'm like, well, obviously this is not my strong suit. But going back to you and this content. So I see your content, I'm instantly sold. So it's fascinating to me to think that agencies are on, Upwork, and you're getting most of your clients from that, which I would think would be more of a, I don't know, like a Fiverr type thing, right?
Well, I would say it's a mix. Like I would say we get a lot of clients from Upwork, a lot of clients from YouTube, and they're probably the two main sources. And certainly they're both much easier to convert than, say, Facebook ads, which we also do. The good thing is on Upwork, like it's not always, I think the perception is that some clients don't have the budget on there, or they're just looking for the cheapest freelancer. But actually, there's some clients that go on there and they only want to work with the premium level freelancers. For example, we've worked with like Hunter.io, and we found them directly through Upwork. So that was awesome. The thing about YouTube is it's just a longer time frame. So a lot of our clients will convert. We have a good conversion rate on the sales call, but it might be 3-4 weeks later Whereas Upwork, quite often you'll get the message and that person is ready to buy
How
within
about
24,
that?
48 hours. Yeah.
So for all those other businesses, who are like, looking for leads, looking for sales, would you say, what would you say the limitations of Upwork are? I mean, obviously it works for SEO. It
Yeah.
obviously works for content creation. Are there businesses where you're like, oh yeah, it's certainly not going to work for that? Let's say, I don't know, you name it. Whatever your service might be, you think it's limited in its ability to help certain industries, or could it work for pretty much anybody?
I think as long as you're a service-based business and you've got to really productize your service as well, because if you want to scale up your sales process and you want to make it really clear and easy for people to buy from you, then you have to lay out a framework that says, here's your problem, here's the roadmap and the solution, and here's how you buy from us and how it's going to work when you work with us. And as long as you can address those three questions, you'll be fine. For example, designers, marketing agencies, that's perfect for Upwork. But even if you're doing project management or HR, as long as you can productize it, that works really well. I think what I notice is that it doesn't particularly work well for people selling coaching and those sort of things, simply because people are on there and they're looking to just hire. They're looking to outsource. So they don't want anything to do with the implementation, which is a good entrepreneurial move. But it does mean that you should be selling a service and it should be productized.
Fascinating. Would not have expected that. How about that? Okay, so there you are. You're based in Thailand now. That's where you
Yes.
you live now full time in Thailand.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So cool. Now, does that work out better tax wise as well? How's that work with as a UK? So in the US, we get basically double taxation when you live overseas. Because you're kind of double. You're still paying US taxes, and then you might be paying like local taxes as well. So kind of crappy. But how's that work? For UK residents, is it?
That's interesting you say that. I do know several expats in the US who have, for some reasons or others, renounced the residency from the US.
That's probably why.
Yeah, there's something I've never heard of before I met these people. But they renounced their residency because of that situation. I think even then, 2, 3, 5 years afterwards, you're still going to get chased for tax as a US resident. For UK, the rules are a bit more black and white. So when I've checked, I'm not an accountant, but when I've checked with several different accountant firms, if you live outside the UK for more than, if you're not in the UK for 90 days or more per year, then you're not a tax resident of the UK. And you don't technically have to pay tax anywhere, as far as I'm aware. This is my understanding.
Right.
However, obviously for me, I pay tax in Thailand because I feel that's an absolute responsibility to pay tax somewhere. And it's a safety net too. And then you also got your business set up. So different countries allow different setups. For example, I have some friends who work online with agencies and they're set up in Hong Kong, of all places, and they don't pay any tax.
Yeah.
Because it's 0% tax on foreign investments. Yeah.
So are you set up in Thailand then? Is it like your corporate structure, it's Thailand based now? Or how do you do that? Yeah.
Corporate structure is Singapore.
Yeah.
Singapore. Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
Because I'm based in Asia, it makes total sense. Yeah.
Okay. I'm assuming there are tax benefits to that as well, or is it just kind of the organization? What are the benefits there in terms of organizing in Singapore?
Yeah. So I mean, first of all, obviously, it's a very legitimate country, right? So you've got all sorts of big companies there, lots of banks there, that sort of thing. So it's a great country to have a company in. It's very safe and stable. On top of that, there are a lot of tax benefits, particularly if you're a small, medium-sized business, that work out really well. And it's very easy to set up online. Like I used an agency called Sleek, and they handle everything for you: the corporate structure, the local director, even the banking. They gave me some good connections. It just made it super easy. And I was like, well, if I can choose from anywhere in the world to have my business, it's probably one of the best.
That's awesome. I think, and maybe it's just kind of from the US perspective. I know, Europeans tend to be more globally, more global citizens, and U.S. citizens tend to be U.S. citizens. We tend to only hear of like offshore, stuff where people are doing that just to avoid, taxes and whatnot. But I think that one of the things I think that stops people is, one, our tax code. But I think the idea that once you get out there, like, where would you even start, right? How would you organize your company, get it set up, and I think that whole Singapore thing, if you're in Asia, yeah, you're right. I mean, they got the reputation. It's now you're not like, hey, it's some, I don't know. It looks good, right? I mean, I don't want to say something stupid, but it looks really solid and good. It's a reputable place, and you're not trying to like, be fly by night or whatever. I just think that's fascinating that you can go from the UK, be like, hey, on holiday, and like, Thailand was awesome. Let's live there, and then start your business. And I mean, I guess that's the beauty of the internet, right? You make this great living now. And now, how's that work in terms of your money goes so much further, right? I mean, in Thailand, it's like, unlike living in, say, London or New York, your
100%.
Your money's going a lot further.
Yeah, a lot further. I mean, in Bangkok, it's a big city, it's a capital, so you can spend as much or as little as you want, and you have to be really careful with the expense creep. Before you know it, you can spend 5, 10, 20K a month if you're not careful. So you still need to be careful. But if you live somewhere like Chiang Mai, for example, where I was based when I wasn't earning much money a week, then it's extremely cheap, unbelievably cheap. Like, you can get a rooftop pool and an amazing condo for like $300 a month. You can go to coffee shops and it's like less than $1 a coffee. Everything is walking distance. Just the lifestyle is unbelievably cheap if you want to live frugal. And then if you do want to spend more, there's options for that too, but extremely affordable place. And if you were living in London, you'd probably be living an hour out and you'd have to commute in every day. Or if you wanted to live in the center, you're easily paying 10, 15K a month just for accommodation, right? I think one of the things that you touched on was the opportunities that the internet gives you now. And it's unbelievable. We live in such an amazing time for that. And I never planned to be an entrepreneur. And even when I was at uni, I was studying business, and my friends would say, like, what are you going to do when you graduate? And I had no idea. I didn't plan to be an entrepreneur. I didn't plan to have a business. And I think just with the opportunities that open up with the internet, you can live and work anywhere. You can set up your own business. There's way less risk. You don't have to take out a loan or anything like that to start an agency. There's no risks or overheads from day one. So absolutely amazing time to be alive.
That's brilliant. Well, I mean, this is the Cyber Business Podcast, so we do like to touch on cyber. And well, we hit ChatGPT. That's kind of there. In terms of SEO and your agency, how does that, and then also living and working kind of globally, right? Most of our clients are either in Europe or in the US. We don't have anybody in Asia at all, which would make it difficult for us for the time change. But do you see any? I could actually see how that's better. But let me ask you, kind of being a global organization, on the cyber side, do you find it to be something where you're more of a target, less of a target, don't feel like you're a target at all? How's that working for you guys?
Yeah, I don't feel like I'm a target at all. Obviously, you have to be very careful, because if you're using multiple software or you're using multiple email accounts across your company online and it's completely remote, you've got to be extremely careful with sharing passwords and who gets access to what and what sort of documents you have and who you bring into the company too. If you're using a lot of contractors or freelancers, which is really easy to hire online, but it's also high risk for a cybersecurity point of view. So you have to be really careful with the data that you have, certainly. But in terms of threats, I've never seen any or had any problems like that. And thankfully, everyone I've ever worked with has never brought any sort of threats to the company. I know some people that have. Yeah.
That's nice. Well, and then, I think a lot of times you find these really genuinely good people who are these entrepreneurs, and when they hire, they're hiring genuinely good people. They kind of more attracted to that, and that's higher on their priority list than some of those people who start a business and all they care about is the money. They're not really into the people. And it's funny because this podcast has given me a chance to meet a lot of people that I otherwise wouldn't, get to really talk to. And you see that, I mean, really, especially on the good side. I mean, I think we've all experienced business owners who are all just purely about the bottom line and the money, and they create a brutal environment. And people kind of justify it like, well, that's what business is about. But I don't think it is. I don't think that's how it works, and certainly not long term. And so it's really cool to see that, and I think we're seeing that with you. That that's clearly a priority, hiring the right people, not just kind of freelancing it and bringing in whoever, because it opens up so many other problems, especially on the cyber side too, because, sharing that information and those passwords, you got to share, with people that you can trust, not just some, I'd hate to use fly by night so many times, but, some less than, a scrupulous contractor that you just don't know who may take advantage of you. So,
yeah, 100%. I mean, the people that work in our team, some of them have worked with us for years, and the amount they've grown, not just in their career, but personally, is just amazing. And I think if you want a really good team of people, then you have to be really focused on them, helping them, sort of explaining what the vision is long term and helping them progress. Because if you're just about money, and it's very easy to be about that, then it's going to be, number one, a very boring environment to work in. Number two, it's going to be like an episode of Succession. I don't know if you've ever seen that series.
Love it.
Yeah. It's a very cutthroat and ruthless environment. And, that might work for 1, 2, 3 months. But if you want people to stay with you years, then you need to be focused on them and their development and helping them. And I think the business is a mirror of you too. So if you care about people, then you're going to hire other people who care about their team as well. Or if you have genuine intentions, not just about money, but about helping people and creating a positive environment that's good for your clients, good for your team, good for you, good for your business, then that spreads a wave of positivity throughout the company. It's about your culture, isn't it?
It certainly is. And that's what we've experienced from you guys. Huge fans, love what you're doing. And that really does come across. I mean, the kind of the genuine care to actually help and benefit, and not just how do we get money from somebody. That's clearly not your approach. It's how do we help them, grow and succeed in terms of SEO and their business. So again, huge fans. And if you could tell everybody where they can find out more about you, where they can, the whole 9 yards. Where can they find out more about you?
Sure. So you can check out my website, juliangoldie.com. And if you want to book in a call, absolutely no obligation, but we can check out your website, give you some SEO tips and advice to get more customers from Google. Happy to do that. And you can book in a call. Otherwise, you can just grab my free link building book from juliangoldie.com. It's right there, available instantly.
Awesome. And of course, there'll be links to all of that below. And so Julian, thanks for coming on the show today. This has been great. I think a lot of people are going to, learn a lot about SEO, and I'm personally excited about getting this out to our clients, because I know every single one of them can benefit from what you guys offer there. Literally every single one of them. We don't have one client who wouldn't be like, oh, this is fantastic. And at the price point and the way that you guys do it, it's just a no-brainer. I'm still kind of shocked. It's like, really? I mean, it's so affordable and it works so well that I'm still a little shocked, but the results speak for themselves. So Julian, thanks for coming on. Thanks for what you do. And we'll talk to you later, buddy.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Cyber Business Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.